What is the meaning of this?
I watched Mr. David Calloway sign my termination papers with the same hand that used to shake when I placed his newborn sons into his arms. His expensive pen didn't even pause. "Security will escort you out," he said, not looking up. "Don't touch anything on your way." 6 years. Gone in 60 seconds. But here's what that rich man didn't know. As his guards walked me past the marble fountain in his entrance hall, in exactly 48 hours, I'd be the only person standing between his babies and death. And the choice I'd make in that hospital room would haunt both of us forever. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. Because you need to understand something important. When people have money, they think they can erase you like a mistake on paper. They forget you're human. They forget you have eyes and ears and a heart that breaks just like theirs. They forget until it's too late. Hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Someone close to you might be watching too. Like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Make sure to watch till the very end, because the final twist is something you definitely don't want to miss. So let's continue. My name is Ruby. Just Ruby. Not some fancy name from a movie or a book. Plain Ruby, like the stone but without the shine. I'm 42 years old, and before that cold Tuesday morning when everything fell apart, I had the best job I'd ever known. I took care of Daniel and David Jr. Yes, Mr. Calloway named one twin after himself because rich people do that from the day they came home from the hospital. Tiny things, both of them, with these huge eyes that seem to see right through you. Born too early, the doctor said. 8 weeks premature, with complications. The word they used was hydrocephalus, water on the brain. Both boys had shunts implanted in their heads when they were just days old, these thin tubes running under their skin to drain the extra fluid. Mrs. Calloway, well, she was Sarah back then before she became Mrs. Calloway in my head. She cried for 3 days straight after the surgery. I held her hand in that hospital room while Mr. Calloway paced and made phone calls about his company. Even then, even at the beginning, I saw how it was. He loved his sons, sure, but love and presents aren't the same thing. Sarah looked at me with tears running down her perfect face and whispered, "Promise me you'll keep them safe." I promised, and I meant it with every piece of my soul. Those first years were hard but beautiful. The twins needed watching every second. Shunt malfunctions can happen without warning: vomiting, seizures, sudden changes in behavior. I learned to spot the signs before the doctors did. I knew when Daniel's left eye would drift just slightly, meaning pressure was building. I knew David Jr.'s cry, the one that meant pain versus the one that meant he wanted attention. I was making $38,000 a year. Not much for Manhattan, but more than I'd ever made cleaning hotels or serving coffee. Plus, room and board in the staff quarters, a small bedroom next to the twins' nursery, with my own bathroom and a window overlooking the garden. I sent money home to my sister in Virginia every month. She has lupus and can't work. Her medication costs more than most people's rent. The Calloways lived in a brownstone worth $8 million. I looked it up once on my phone, late at night when I couldn't sleep. $8 million for a house. Mr. Calloway ran some kind of investment company, the kind where men wear suits that cost more than cars and talk about markets and opportunities and growth. Sarah didn't work. She did charity events and yoga and something called wellness consulting that seemed to mean she took pictures of herself drinking green juice. I'm not judging. She was kind to me mostly, said please and thank you. Asked about my sister sometimes, but kindness from rich people is like weather. It changes fast and without warning. The problem started about a year ago, though I didn't see them clearly then. Mr. Calloway began coming home later and later. Sarah started drinking wine at lunch. Just 1 glass, she'd say, then 2. Then she stopped saying anything about it at all. The twins were 5 years old by then. Smart, funny boys. Daniel loved drawing pictures of dragons and spaceships. David Jr. could name every dinosaur in his picture books, even the ones with impossible names full of letters that didn't belong together. They called me Ruby. Not Nanny Ruby or Miss Ruby. Just Ruby. like I was family. That should have been my first warning that I was in dangerous territory. When you start feeling like family, that's when rich people remember you're not. It was a Monday when I found the pills. I wasn't snooping, let me be clear about that. I was putting away laundry in Sarah's closet, the one that's bigger than my childhood bedroom, when a bottle fell from the shelf. Little orange container, white cap, scattered across the cream carpet. Oxycodone. Prescribed to someone named Jennifer Martinez, not Sarah Calloway. My hands shook as I picked them up, counted them back into the bottle. 40 pills, maybe more. I put them back on the shelf behind the shoeboxes and backed out of that closet like it was full of snakes. I should have said something right then, should have gone to Mr. Calloway that same day. But I didn't, because I was scared. Scared of losing my job, my room, my way to help my sister. Scared of what happens to women like me when we point fingers at women like Sarah. So I stayed quiet and watched. Sarah started missing the twins' bedtime. She'd promised to read them stories, then I'd find her asleep on her bathroom floor at 7 p.m. The boys would ask where Mommy was, and I'd make up stories about her being tired, about grown-ups needing rest too. I read them their stories instead, tucked them in, checked their shunts like I did every night, feeling for heat or swelling, looking for signs of trouble. Mr. Calloway noticed nothing, or pretended to notice nothing. I'm still not sure which is worse. Then came Valentine's Day. Sarah threw a party. One of those fancy things where people who don't really like each other stand around pretending they do. Caterers in the kitchen, bartenders mixing drinks with names I couldn't pronounce, music playing soft enough that you could hear everyone's fake laughter. I kept the twins upstairs away from the noise. We built towers with blocks and crashed toy cars into them, and they giggled like it was the funniest thing in the world. Around 9 p.m., Daniel said his head hurt. Not unusual, he got headaches sometimes from the shunt pressure. I gave him the children's pain medicine the doctor prescribed, dimmed the lights, and sat with him while he fell asleep. But something felt wrong. A mother's instinct, except I wasn't his mother, just the woman who spent every day keeping him alive. I checked his shunt site. No redness, no swelling, temperature normal. Still, that feeling wouldn't leave. I went downstairs to find Sarah, to tell her I thought we should watch Daniel closely tonight. Maybe call the doctor in the morning if he wasn't better. I found her in the library, pressed against the wall with a man who definitely wasn't Mr. Calloway. They didn't see me. I backed away, my heart hammering, my face hot with embarrassment and something else. Something like anger. I went back upstairs and sat in the dark nursery between the twins' beds, listening to them breathe, wondering what I'd stumbled into. The next morning, Sarah called me into her bedroom. She was wearing sunglasses inside, and the room smelled like wine and expensive perfume trying to cover it up. "I need you to understand something," she said, her voice sharp despite the sunglasses. "What happens in this house stays in this house, are we clear?" I nodded, but inside I was screaming. Inside I was thinking about those boys down the hall, about the pills in her closet, about the man in the library who wasn't her husband. "Yes, ma'am," I said, because that's what women like me say to women like her. We both knew I'd seen something. We both knew she was buying my silence without actually offering me anything in return. That's when I started looking for other jobs. Nothing serious yet. Just browsing websites late at night, seeing what was out there for someone with my experience. But I wasn't fast enough. 2 weeks later, on that Tuesday morning in March, Mr. Calloway called me into his office at 7 a.m. The twins were still asleep. Sarah was still in bed. "There's been a complaint," he said, shuffling papers on his massive desk like he was preparing for a business meeting instead of destroying someone's life. "About your care of the children." My stomach dropped. What kind of complaint? "Negligence, inappropriate discipline. My wife has documented several incidents." "That's not true." My voice came out too loud, too desperate. I would never." He held up one hand, rich man's gesture for silence. "We can't take any risks with our son's health. I'm sure you understand. We'll provide 2 weeks of severance pay, plus a reference for future employment." A reference, like that would help after an accusation of negligence. Mr. Calloway, Please, let me talk to Mrs. Calloway. There's been a mistake. The decision is final. Pack your things. Security will help you. I wanted to scream that I knew about the pills, about the man in the library, about all the nights Sarah passed out while I kept her children alive. I wanted to tell him I'd been more of a mother to those twins than she'd been in months. But women like me don't get to scream at men like him, so I packed my small room into 3 suitcases and 2 garbage bags. 6 years of my life fit in a taxi trunk. The twins were eating breakfast when security walked me out. They didn't understand why Ruby was leaving with all her stuff. Daniel started crying. David Jr. threw his cereal bowl on the floor and screamed my name. I heard them all the way down the front steps. Sarah stood in the doorway watching. She'd taken off her sunglasses now. Her eyes were cold and clear and satisfied. She'd protected herself by erasing me. That's what rich people do when you see too much. They make you disappear. I stayed with my cousin in the Bronx for 2 days, sleeping on her couch, crying in her bathroom so her kids wouldn't hear. I called the agency that had placed me with the Calloways, but word travels fast in the nanny world. Accusations stick to you like tar. No one wanted to hire someone who'd been fired for negligence, even with no proof. My sister called asking about her medication money. I had to tell her I'd send it as soon as I found work. "What happened?" she asked, her voice weak and thin. "Rich people happened," I said. Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Ruby?" A man's voice, official and urgent. "This is Dr. Patel from Manhattan Medical Center. You're listed as an emergency contact for Daniel and David Calloway." My blood went cold. What happened? Both twins were brought in this morning with signs of shunt malfunction. We've stabilized them, but we need someone who knows their medical history. The parents are unable to provide accurate information at this time. Unable. That word hung in the air like smoke. "I'm on my way," I said, already grabbing my coat. The subway felt like it took hours. I kept thinking about all the things that could go wrong with shunt malfunctions. Infection, brain damage, death, if not treated fast enough. I ran from the subway to the hospital, my chest burning, my old shoes slapping the pavement. The pediatric ICU was on the 4th floor. Dr. Patel met me at the nurse's station, a tired-looking man with kind eyes and coffee stains on his white coat. "Thank God you're here," he said. "We need to know their exact symptoms over the past week. Any changes in behavior, appetite, sleep patterns. The mother claims everything was normal, but the shunt pressure readings tell a different story." "Where is Mrs. Calloway?" He gestured to a waiting room down the hall. "With her husband. They're dealing with some issues." I found them through the window. Sarah sat on a plastic chair, her face in her hands. Mr. Calloway stood against the wall, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face grey. He saw me. Our eyes met through the glass. For the first time since I'd known him, David Calloway looked scared. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. These people had thrown me out like trash 2 days ago. They'd accused me of the one thing I'd never do, hurt those boys. But Daniel and David Jr. were in hospital beds down the hall, and they needed someone who actually knew them, someone who'd paid attention. I turned back to Dr. Patel. "Daniel has been getting headaches for about 3 weeks, mild ones at first but increasing. David Jr. had 2 episodes of vomiting last week that his mother blamed on the stomach flu." The doctor's face went tight. Classic signs of shunt malfunction. Why wasn't this reported? Because Sarah Calloway was too busy with pills and men who weren't her husband. Because Mr. Calloway was too busy making millions to notice his sons were sick. Because I'd been fired before I could protect them anymore. "I don't know," I said quietly. Dr. Patel led me to the twins' room. They were in side-by-side beds, both hooked up to monitors that beeped and glowed, IVs in their arms, oxygen tubes in their noses. But they were awake. "Ruby." Daniel tried to sit up, but the nurse gently pushed him back down. "You came back," David Jr. was crying. "We thought you left forever." I pulled a chair between their beds and took one small hand in each of mine. "I'm here now. Everything's going to be okay." "Mommy said you didn't want to be our nanny anymore," Daniel whispered. "She said you got a better job." Rage bloomed in my chest, hot and sharp. But I kept my voice soft. "That's not true, baby. I would never leave you on purpose. Never." The doctor explained they both needed surgery to replace their shunts. The old ones had stopped working properly, maybe a slow failure over weeks, maybe sudden. Either way, the pressure on their brains had built up dangerously. "Without surgery tonight, we're looking at possible seizures, coma, permanent brain damage," Dr. Patel said quietly. "With surgery, the prognosis is good, but they're high risk because of their age and medical history. We need consent from the parents." "Get it," I said. "Whatever it takes." He nodded and left to talk to the Callaways. I stayed with the twins, holding their hands, telling them about the time we went to the park and Daniel found a caterpillar and carried it around all day in a little box. About when David Jr. learned to write his name and wrote it on everything, paper, walls, his own arm. They laughed, tired little sounds that broke my heart. "Will you stay?" Daniel asked. "After the surgery?" "As long as they let me," I promised. Mr. Calloway appeared in the doorway. He looked at his sons, then at me, then at his expensive shoes. "Can we talk?" His voice cracked on the last word. I kissed both boys' foreheads and followed him to the hallway. "I'm sorry." He said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. "Sarah told me you'd been..." She said things that weren't true. I should have investigated. Should have talked to you myself. "Yes," I said. "You should have. The doctors say you knew they were sick, that you'd been monitoring symptoms. For weeks, I tried to tell your wife multiple times. She didn't want to hear it." He closed his eyes. "She's in treatment now. I didn't know how bad things had gotten until last night when the boys started seizing and she couldn't even tell me when they'd last eaten." I felt nothing for him. No sympathy, no satisfaction. Just empty. "Your sons are about to have brain surgery," I said. "Maybe save your explanations for later. Will you come back?" He looked at me now, really looked at me. "Please, I'll double your salary. I'll give you whatever you need. They need you, I see that now." "I'll stay until they're better," I said. "After that, we'll see." The surgery took 4 hours. I sat in the waiting room with Mr. Calloway, not talking, just existing in the same space. Sarah was somewhere else, a treatment facility, he said, getting help. Dr. Patel came out at 11 p.m., pulling off his surgical cap. "Both boys did well. The new shunts are in place and functioning. They'll need to stay a few days for observation, but I expect full recovery." Mr. Calloway actually cried, tears running down his face, shoulders shaking, the kind of crying that comes from deep in your chest. I didn't cry. I was too tired. The twins came home after 5 days. I moved back into my old room like I'd never left, except everything was different now. Mr. Calloway kept his promise about the salary. Doubled it, plus benefits, plus a formal contract that protected me from being fired without cause. Sarah stayed away for 3 months. When she came back, she was quieter, thinner, and she looked at her sons like she was seeing them for the first time. She apologized to me one morning over coffee, her hands wrapped around her mug like she was cold. "I was wrong," she said, "about everything. I blamed you because it was easier than admitting I was failing them." "Yes," I said, because it was true. "Can you forgive me?" I thought about that question for a long time. About the pills in the closet, the man in the library, the lies that got me fired. About Daniel and David Jr. crying for me while security walked me out. "I can work with you," I said finally, "for the boys, but forgiveness? That's something you'll have to earn." She nodded, tears in her eyes. That was 8 months ago. Now Daniel and David Jr. are 6 years old. Their shunts are working perfectly. They're healthy, happy boys who fight over toys and tell bad jokes and draw pictures of their family that always include me. Sometimes they draw me taller than their parents. Sometimes they draw me with a crown. Mr. Calloway sold his company and works from home now. He eats breakfast with his sons every morning. Sarah goes to therapy twice a week and hasn't touched a pill or a drink since she came back. They're trying. Both of them, in their own broken way. Last week, Mr. Calloway asked me to join them for dinner. Not to serve it, to eat it. At the table, with the family. "You saved their lives," he said, looking at his sons. "You saw what we were too blind to see. You're part of this family, Ruby, really part of it." I wanted to tell him that calling me family now doesn't erase firing me then. That money and apologies don't fix the 2 days I spent crying on my cousin's couch, or the terror I felt when I thought I'd lost everything. But Daniel reached over and put his hand on mine, his small fingers warm and alive and perfect. "You're my favorite person," he said simply, and David Jr. nodded. "Mine too." That's the thing about children. They don't see class or money or all the complicated adult things that tear people apart. They just see who shows up, who stays, who keeps them safe when the world gets scary. I squeezed their hands and smiled, even though my heart ached with everything that happened to get us here. "You're my favorite people too," I said. Later that night, after the boys were asleep and their shunts were checked and the house was quiet, I sat in my room and thought about the past year, about how close we came to tragedy because rich people thought their money made them invincible, about how 2 little boys almost died because their mother was too proud to admit she needed help and their father was too busy to notice, about how I, plain Ruby, the woman they threw away, ended up being the only one who could save them. There's no happy ending here, not the kind you see in movies. The Calloways are still rich and I'm still their employee. The power between us will never be equal. But those boys are alive, their laughter fills this big empty house, and when they look at me, they see someone who loved them enough to come back even after everything. That's not nothing. That's not nothing at all. 6 months from now, I'll leave this job. I've been saving money more than I ever thought possible with the new salary. My sister's medication is covered. I have enough for a small apartment of my own, maybe even to start that home care business I've always dreamed about. The Calloways will find a new nanny, someone who won't get too attached, who understands boundaries better than I did. But I'll visit Daniel and David Jr. They've made me promise, birthday parties, school plays, holidays. They've drawn it all out in crayon, Ruby at the kitchen table, Ruby in the audience, Ruby at Christmas. They've drawn me into their future like I'm permanent, like I'm fixed there. And maybe I am. Maybe some kinds of love don't fit in job descriptions or contracts. Maybe some connections survive even when everything else falls apart. Mr. Calloway told me last week that he wants to create a scholarship in my name for women studying early childhood education and pediatric nursing. He said it's the least he can do. I told him to make it for women of color specifically. Women like me who work hard and get overlooked and deserve better than being erased when we become inconvenient. He agreed. So somewhere out there, someday, there will be other Rubies. Women who get chances they wouldn't have had otherwise. Women who know their worth even when the world tries to tell them different. That's how you make something good from something terrible. You take the pain and you transform it. You make sure the next person doesn't have to suffer the same way. You save the children, not just the ones in your care, but the ones who will come after. Tonight, I tucked Daniel and David Jr. into bed like I've done 1,000 times before. I checked their shunts, told them stories, kissed their foreheads. "Ruby?" Daniel said as I reached the door. "Do you remember when Daddy made you leave?" My hand froze on the light switch. "Yes, baby. I remember. I'm glad you came back." His voice was sleepy and soft. "You're the best thing in our whole life." I stood there in the dark hallway for a long time after their breathing deepened into sleep. Because that's the truth they'll never understand until they're older. I didn't come back for the money or the apology or the promise of being called family. I came back because 2 little boys needed me, and I'd promised to keep them safe. And unlike the people who threw me away, I keep my promises. Every single one. Dear friends, what you just saw is only one part of the bigger picture. In the next video, I'll reveal the twist no one saw coming, so make sure you're here when it drops. I would love to know what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much. And don't forget to give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, and share with someone who needs to hear it.